There are nights when the silence of your room feels more suffocating than the darkness itself, when you lie awake, trapped in your own thoughts, yearning for a love that always seems just out of reach. You wonder, why does love, something so natural, feel like a distant dream, something always just beyond your grasp? Have you ever felt that deep, unspoken hunger for affection, only to be met with emptiness? What if the very way you've been seeking love is the reason you're left wanting more? This is the moment where everything changes. What if I told you that the key to love, to true, unconditional love, lies not in the hands of another, but within your own heart? The truth of love, as we know it, is about to be shattered, and what awaits you on the other side will leave you breathless. If you're ready to embark on this transformative journey and discover the true meaning of love, don't forget to subscribe to Buddhism in every moment and support the channel. Your support fuels the creation of more meaningful content that helps guide us through life's deepest questions and mysteries. Stay tuned for more profound insights that could change your life. Part 1. The Weight of Loneliness and the Search for Love. There are nights that seem heavier than others. Nights when the silence within the walls of your room feels like a tangible weight, pressing down on you with an almost unbearable force. It's the kind of silence that holds no comfort, no rest, just an overwhelming emptiness that stretches on endlessly. You lie in the stillness, your eyes wide open, and the thoughts in your mind echo louder than anything around you. It's in these moments that you realize how profound your loneliness is. The stillness around you only amplifies the loneliness you feel within. The quiet grows into a presence of its own, like a shadow that clings to you, uninvited but persistent. In the dark, with only your breath to keep you company, you can't help but wonder, where is the love I've been searching for? There's a hunger in you, subtle but constant, like a quiet ache that follows you through every moment of the night. It's a hunger not for food, not for the comforts of the world, but for something deeper, something more elusive. The longing for connection, for understanding, for someone who sees you, not just your face, but your soul. Someone who would love you just as you are, without conditions or expectations. This longing, though never loud, is always present, like a quiet hum beneath the surface of everything you do. This desire for love isn't something you can always put into words. It's not a simple yearning for affection or companionship. It's a craving for something more profound, something that will fill the gaps in your heart that have remained empty for so long. It's the kind of hunger that can't be satisfied with distractions or fleeting moments of affection. No matter how much you try to fill the void, it always comes back, this deep need to be loved, not just because of what you can offer, but because of who you are. You don't want to feel needed, you want to feel cherished. But even with this deep yearning, even with the ache in your chest, you sometimes wonder if you'll ever find what you're searching for. The deeper you search for love, the more elusive it seems. It becomes something you can't quite touch, something that slips through your fingers when you think you've finally grasped it. Even when you find moments of connection with others, you are left wondering, is this what I've been searching for, or is it just a fleeting illusion? It feels as though the more you reach out, the more you give of yourself, the more love seems to slip away. The harder you try, the further it seems to be. And yet the hunger, that quiet ache, remains. It never truly disappears. This search for love isn't something you can turn off. It's woven into the fabric of your being, deeply embedded in your soul. It's a desire that doesn't always shout but lingers, gently pulling at the edges of your consciousness. It doesn't demand attention, but it's always there, in the background, waiting for fulfillment. It's a longing for something that doesn't quite exist in the form you expect. The love you've been searching for often feels just out of reach, like a distant shore that you can see but never quite reach. There are moments when this longing is almost too much to bear. The feeling of being alone in a crowded room, the sensation of being surrounded by people yet still feeling like an outsider, like no one truly understands you. You wonder why love, something that should come so naturally, seems so hard to find. Why does it feel so elusive, like a dream that fades as soon as you wake up? You start to question whether you will ever experience the kind of love that fills the empty spaces within you, the kind that heals the wounds you've carried for so long. But the truth is, the more you search for love outside of yourself, the more distant it becomes. You begin to realize that what you are really searching for isn't something that can be given to you by another person. It's not something you can find in a relationship or in the approval of others. It's something that must be discovered within yourself, something that arises when you stop seeking it outside and start looking inward. The search for love is not about finding someone who will love you in the way you've always imagined, but about discovering a love that already exists within you. This realization doesn't come easily. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's a truth that slowly begins to emerge when you stop running from your own emotions and start sitting with them, allowing them to speak to you. The love you are searching for is not a far-off dream. It's a part of you, always has been, always will be. It's a deep connection to yourself, a sense of peace and acceptance that can only be found when you stop expecting someone else to fill the emptiness. It's the quiet recognition that you are worthy of love, not because of what you can give or what you can do, but simply because you exist. This truth is liberating, but it's also painful. It's hard to let go of the belief that someone else must come to fill your heart. But once you begin to see that love starts within, that it's something you can cultivate within yourself, the hunger slowly starts to fade. It doesn't disappear completely, but it becomes less of a longing and more of an acceptance. The emptiness you once felt is no longer something to be feared, but something to be embraced. You begin to understand that love is not a need. It is a gift that you can give to yourself first and then share with others. As you rest tonight, perhaps you can reflect on the hunger you've been carrying, the longing that has followed you for so long. Maybe it's time to stop looking outward for the love you've always dreamed of. Maybe it's time to start looking inward, to begin the process of loving yourself just as you are, without condition, without expectation. Only then will you begin to realize that love was never something to be found in another person. It was always within you, waiting for you to recognize it. Part 2. Love as a transaction and the illusion of conditional affection. From the moment we are introduced to the concept of love, it is often framed as a kind of exchange, a transaction where something is always given and something is always expected in return. As children, we are taught that love is earned through good behavior, through acts of kindness, through sacrifices and promises. We quickly learn that love, in many respects, comes with an unwritten contract. Do this for me, and I will do that for you. It becomes a dance of expectations, a silent agreement that binds two people together not through genuine affection, but through what they can offer each other. In a world that often teaches us to measure our worth by what we give and what we receive, it's no surprise that love, for many, has become a reflection of this principle. This transaction model of love doesn't just permeate romantic relationships. It colors our interactions with friends, family, and even strangers. Love is given with an eye on what will come back. A gesture, an offer, an expression of care. These things are no longer simply about the act itself, but about the promise that they will be reciprocated. It's the idea that if I give, you will give back. And this cycle continues, sometimes without either party truly questioning whether the love they feel is genuine or simply the fulfillment of a contract. The notion of love as a transaction is, in many ways, a subtle but powerful illusion. It convinces us that affection is something we must earn, that it's a currency that we must accumulate through acts of service, loyalty, or beauty. It creates a false sense of security, as if love were something we could control, as if it could be bargained for, as if it were a commodity that could be traded like anything else. This illusion gives us comfort because it seems predictable, measurable. We think we know how to secure it, how to make sure it lasts, how to keep it in our lives. But the problem with love as a transaction is that it's fundamentally incomplete. It isn't love at all. At its core, love is supposed to be unconditional, a force that is free from expectations, that flows freely without any strings attached. However, when we view love through the lens of a transaction, we begin to confuse the essence of love with the act of giving something in exchange for something else. And in doing so, we set ourselves up for disappointment because true love, the kind that transcends all conditions, can never be earned or demanded. It is not something that can be calculated or bargained for. Love, when reduced to an exchange, becomes a fragile construct, a facade that shatters when the conditions upon which it is built are no longer met. This transactional model of love breeds a deep sense of insecurity. We begin to question whether the love we receive is genuine or if it is merely the result of fulfilling certain conditions. We ask ourselves, am I loved for who I am, or am I simply being kept around because I meet certain expectations? And when those conditions change, when we become less useful, less needed, or when the novelty wears off, the love that once seemed solid begins to unravel. What remains is not love, but a hollow shell of what it once was, a brittle arrangement that crumbles under the weight of impermanence. This is where the teachings of Buddhism offer a profound insight. The Buddha spoke often about tanha, the craving that binds us to suffering. Tanha is not limited to material desires. It extends to the craving for affection, for approval, for validation. It is the deep-seated desire that we harbor for things, relationships, and even love that are conditional. We crave love because we believe it will fulfill our needs, our desires, our sense of self-worth. We think that by giving, we will receive and that this exchange will complete us, fill us, and keep us whole. But the truth is far from this illusion. Tanha, or craving, is at the root of much of our suffering because it leads us to believe that love must be earned, that we must constantly perform in order to receive the affection we long for. This craving leads to a cycle of dependency, where love is no longer a gift freely given but a ledger where we tally up what we've given versus what we've received. The more we cling to this idea of love as a transaction, the more it diminishes its true nature. The Buddha taught that the path to true freedom and peace lies in letting go of tanha, of relinquishing our attachment to conditional love and embracing the reality that love, at its core, is not a trade. It is a natural expression of the heart, an overflowing of care, kindness, and compassion that requires nothing in return. When we let go of the need for reciprocation, love becomes a source of joy and liberation, not a means to an end. It is not about what we gain, but about the joy of giving without expectation. This doesn't mean that we stop giving, or that we become indifferent to the affection of others. It means that we start to give freely, from a place of fullness rather than need. We begin to recognize that love is not a currency, and that no one can truly complete us. We are already whole. We do not need love to prove our worth. When we stop viewing love as a transaction, we free ourselves from the fear that it will one day be withdrawn, that it will disappear when we fail to meet someone else's expectations. Instead, we learn to embrace love as an act of generosity, a gift that is freely offered not to fulfill a need but to share the abundance of our own hearts. When we make this shift, we begin to experience a deeper, more lasting kind of love. We stop measuring the value of love by how much we give or receive, and we start to recognize it for what it truly is, an expression of the heart, a flow of kindness and compassion that transcends any conditions or expectations. This love doesn't come with a price tag. It doesn't require us to prove our worthiness. It simply is. And it is this love, free from conditions, that brings peace and fulfillment, both to ourselves and to others. As you reflect on your own experiences with love, ask yourself, how often have you approached love as a transaction, believing that your affection must be earned or reciprocated? How often have you found yourself clinging to relationships, not out of a desire to truly connect, but out of a need to feel validated or complete? Now imagine what it would be like to let go of those expectations, to love without needing anything in return, to give from a place of abundance rather than emptiness. This is the path to true freedom and peace, where love flows freely, not because we need it, but because it is our very nature. When you embrace love as an unconditional gift, you begin to see that love is not something to be grasped or traded. It is something to be shared freely and without hesitation. The true beauty of love lies in its selflessness, its ability to flow from a heart that is already full, a heart that knows that love is not about what we get, but about what we give. When we give love freely, without expectation or condition, we discover that it is not a burden, but a blessing, a gift that nourishes both the giver and the receiver, and a source of joy that never fades. So, let go of the illusion that love is a transaction. Embrace the freedom of giving love without expectation, and you will find that love becomes a natural, effortless expression of who you truly are. You will no longer seek to possess it, but to share it. You will no longer fear losing it, because you will know that love, when it is given freely, never runs out. It only grows. Part 3. The Unraveling of Illusions. For much of our lives, we are taught to believe in an idealized version of love, one that is unchanging, eternal, and unshakable. We hear stories of everlasting love, love that stands the test of time, love that endures every obstacle, love that transcends the fleeting nature of life itself. These tales are whispered to us from childhood, woven into the fabric of fairy tales and romances that fill our minds with the promise of a perfect, undying connection. But as we grow older, the harsh realities of life begin to reveal a much different truth. The love we once believed to be eternal often reveals itself to be nothing more than a fragile illusion. The truth that slowly emerges is a painful one. The love we thought was unbreakable, the love we thought we could depend on, often isn't love at all. It is simply a form of affection, a symbol that we have attached ourselves to, believing that it would provide the stability and fulfillment we long for. We have been conditioned to think that love is something that can be secured, something that, once found, will never waver or fade. But the reality is that love, like all things in life, is subject to the forces of change and impermanence. When the illusion begins to unravel, it's as though the very foundation of our understanding of love is shaken. What we once believed to be the unshakable truth begins to crumble, revealing the fragility of what we had held so dearly. The partners we thought we could rely on, the relationships we assumed were built to last, start to show signs of wear and tear. The tenderness that once defined them begins to fade, replaced by something less certain. And in this moment of realization, we are faced with a choice: to continue clinging to the illusion of permanence, or to embrace the truth that all things, including love, are impermanent. At first, this truth feels unbearable. We struggle to accept the idea that love, something so deeply ingrained in our lives, something we have spent years nurturing and believing in, could be as fleeting as everything else in the world. But as the Buddha taught, everything in life is impermanent. From the most vibrant flowers to the most enduring relationships, all things are subject to change. And when we cling to the idea that love should remain constant, we set ourselves up for heartache and disappointment. The tighter we hold on, the more it slips through our fingers. The relationships that once seemed solid begin to show cracks, and what once felt like a safe, unbreakable bond starts to feel fragile. It's not that the love we experienced was false, but rather that we mistook it for something it wasn't. We believed that love could be contained, that it could be controlled, that it could be preserved forever. But love, in its truest form, is not something we can possess or maintain indefinitely. Love is a living, breathing force that flows through us, not something we can hold onto in an effort to make it stay the same. The realization that love is not eternal, that it is subject to the ebb and flow of life, can be liberating if we choose to see it as such. The pain we feel in the face of this truth is not a punishment. It is an invitation to grow, to understand, and to accept. True love is not about freezing a moment in time, but about learning to navigate the ever-changing currents of life with grace and understanding. The illusion of unchanging love was never meant to be the end goal. The true beauty of love lies in its ability to transform, to adapt, and to flow with the tides of life. This acceptance of impermanence is not an easy journey. It requires us to face the uncomfortable truth that nothing, including love, can be held onto forever. But once we let go of the need to control love to make it stay the same, we open ourselves to a deeper, more profound connection. We begin to see love not as something that is fixed or static, but as something dynamic, evolving, and alive. We stop measuring love by its duration or its consistency, and instead, we begin to appreciate it for the fleeting beauty that it is. As we embrace this truth, we start to understand that love is not something we must hold onto tightly, but something we must allow to move and change with the natural flow of life. We learn to appreciate the moments of love as they come, and to release them when they pass, knowing that their beauty lies in their impermanence. We no longer view the fading of love as a loss, but as a natural part of its life cycle. Love, in its truest form, is not about clinging to what was, but about embracing what is and being open to what may come. The paradox of love is that when we let go of our need for permanence, when we stop clinging to the illusion of unchanging affection, we free ourselves to experience love in its purest form. Love is no longer something we chase or demand, but something we allow to flow freely, without fear or expectation. In doing so, we begin to experience a deeper connection with others and with ourselves, one that is not rooted in the need for control or security, but in the acceptance of life's inevitable changes. The acceptance of love's impermanence brings with it a profound sense of freedom. We no longer have to fear the loss of love, because we understand that love is not something that can be lost. It is not a possession to be held, but a gift to be shared. And when we embrace this truth, we can begin to love more fully, more freely, and more deeply. We can love without fear of loss, and in doing so, we experience the fullness of love in its most authentic form. This journey from illusion to truth is not an easy one, but it is one that is necessary for growth. When we allow love to unfold naturally, when we accept its fleeting nature, we free ourselves from the burdens of expectation and control. We no longer try to preserve love as a static entity, but allow it to evolve, to transform, and to breathe with the rhythms of life. In this process, we discover a love that is not bound by time or circumstance, but one that is free to flow, to change, and to live in the present moment. As you reflect on your own experiences with love, ask yourself, how much of your love has been shaped by the need for permanence? How much of your connection to others has been rooted in the desire to control, to preserve, and to hold on? And what would it be like if you could let go of those expectations? If you could embrace love as it is without trying to freeze it in time? What if you could love freely, without fear of loss, and without the need for love to remain the same? In this shift, you will begin to experience a deeper, more profound connection with the people you love and with the world around you. Love will no longer be a struggle or a burden, but a celebration of the present moment. And as you allow love to flow freely, without attachment, you will find that it becomes more abundant, more meaningful, and more true. Part 4. The Paradox of Love, Craving vs. Compassion. At the core of every human relationship lies a paradox, the pursuit of love. It is a pursuit that feels urgent, almost primal, yet elusive. For most of us, love is something we chase, something we crave. It's a hunger that can never seem to be fully satisfied. But if we dig deeper, we realize that love is not something that can be obtained through sheer desire, nor is it something that can be secured by fulfilling our own needs or expectations. The paradox of love arises when we compare two opposing forces, craving and compassion. Craving is the unrelenting desire for love, affection, and validation. It is a force that drives us, often without us even realizing it. Craving sees love as something to be attained, something to be earned through acts of service or loyalty, something that we must work for and in doing so, create a sense of dependency. It says, If I give you this, will you love me in return? This is a familiar pattern, one that many of us have found ourselves caught in at one point or another. It's the feeling that our worth is tied to our ability to meet others' expectations, that love is something that must be traded, bartered, and negotiated. But here lies the paradox. Craving is driven by a need. It's a hunger, a void that we desperately try to fill. And yet, the more we crave, the more elusive love becomes. It's as if the more we try to control it, the more it slips through our fingers. Craving, by its very nature, is unsustainable because it is based on the idea that love is something finite, something we can only receive in exchange for our own acts or sacrifices. And this is where the illusion begins. Love, in its truest form, is not about needing anything in return. It is about giving freely without expectation. The other force in this paradox is compassion, a quality that stands in stark contrast to craving. Compassion, or karuna in Buddhist teachings, is love that is freely given without the expectation of anything in return. Compassion arises naturally from the heart, not because we need love to fill an empty space, but because we want to offer kindness, care, and understanding without any ulterior motives. It is love that transcends the transactional. Compassion doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't keep track of what has been given or received. It simply exists. Buddhism teaches us that compassion is not a limited resource. It does not depend on what we get back, nor does it diminish the more we give. In fact, the opposite is true. Compassion grows as we offer it. The more we give, the more we find within ourselves to offer. This is where the power of compassion lies. It is self-replenishing, self-sustaining, and ever-expanding. When we approach others with compassion, we are not seeking to fulfill a need. We are simply acting from a place of abundance within ourselves. Compassion doesn't come with strings attached. It is a love that is unconditional, without expectation, and therefore never depleted. This kind of love, love rooted in compassion, is not the love we often experience in our day-to-day lives. The love we are familiar with is often laced with conditions. It's the love that asks, "What do I get in return for my efforts?" It's the love that keeps score, that measures what's been given and what's been taken. It's a love that is transactional at its core. But when we step away from this, when we embrace the practice of compassion, love takes on an entirely new form. It becomes a flow that moves freely, like a river, reaching everyone it touches, nourishing them without asking anything in return. Compassion in Buddhism is not just about loving others, but also about loving ourselves in the same way. To practice compassion is to love without expectations, to forgive without conditions, and to accept ourselves without judgment. It's a love that isn't about what we can do for others, but about who we are when we choose to give of ourselves freely. Compassion invites us to see others not as objects of our desire, but as fellow beings deserving of kindness, empathy, and care, simply because they exist. This love, compassionate love, is what sustains us through life's most difficult moments. It's the love that remains steady when all else seems to change. It's the love that gives us the strength to face adversity, the courage to let go of attachments, and the grace to forgive. Compassion doesn't need anything in return because it is not driven by need. It is not born from emptiness but from wholeness. This is the paradox of love, that the more we give, the more we have to give. Now, contrast this with craving. When we crave love, we are not offering it from a place of wholeness, but from a place of scarcity. Craving is driven by the belief that we are not enough as we are, and that we need someone or something else to complete us. We see love as something external to ourselves, something that must be earned, won, or purchased. And yet the more we chase it, the more we realize that it is never truly within our grasp. Love that is based on craving is fragile, for it depends on external circumstances, on the approval of others, on meeting conditions. But love born of compassion is not fragile. It does not wither in the face of hardship, nor does it falter when it is not reciprocated. Compassion does not require affirmation or validation. It simply exists because it is the nature of the heart to love. It doesn't demand that we be perfect, nor does it judge us when we fall short. Compassion accepts us as we are, flaws and all, and extends that same acceptance to others. This is the great gift of compassion. It frees us from the chains of expectation and need. It allows us to love without fear, without judgment, without the fear of loss. When we love with compassion, we love not because we need anything in return, but because love is our nature. And this love, when it is freely given, is the most powerful force in the universe. It heals, it nurtures, and it transforms. The Buddha's teachings on love are not about restraining our desires, but about understanding them. When we crave love, we are trying to fill an empty space inside ourselves. But when we love with compassion, we are already full. We do not need anyone to complete us because we have already learned to love ourselves fully. Compassion, then, is not just about loving others. It is about loving ourselves first and foremost, accepting ourselves completely without the need for validation. The paradox here is simple but profound. The more we seek love through craving, the more we push it away. The more we try to control it, the more elusive it becomes. But when we let go of our need to possess love, when we stop trying to hold it in place, we discover that love is already here. It is within us, and it is all around us. We simply need to let it flow. As you reflect on your own experiences with love, consider this. How much of your love has been driven by craving? How much of your relationships have been based on what you can give in exchange for what you hope to receive? What would happen if you allowed love to flow from a place of compassion without expectation? What would it be like to love without needing anything in return, to give love freely because it is simply your nature to do so? In embracing this love, you will find that it never runs out. It expands with every act of kindness, every moment of understanding. It is self-replenishing because it is not based on need, but on the abundance of the heart. And when you love with compassion, you become a channel for that love, radiating it out into the world, touching everyone you encounter. Part 5. Love as a mirror of impermanence. In the stillness of our hearts, we all carry the whisper of an ancient truth, the inevitability of change. It is a truth we often deny, resist, or ignore, but it is a truth that defines everything we experience. This truth is known in Buddhism as anicca, the doctrine of impermanence. Everything in life, from the smallest leaf to the grandest mountain, is in a constant state of flux. Nothing remains the same. Everything shifts, evolves, and eventually fades. And yet, it is in this very impermanence that the beauty of life and of love is found. The teachings of impermanence are not meant to bring despair or hopelessness. Rather, they are meant to guide us toward a deeper appreciation of the present moment. When we accept that all things change, including love, we can begin to experience love in its truest form, free from the shackles of expectation and fear. Love, like everything else in this world, is not a static, unchanging force that we can possess or control. It is a living, breathing entity, flowing through us and those we love. And it is in accepting that love will change, grow, and evolve that we can learn to cherish it even more deeply. When we think of love, we often imagine it as something permanent, something that once found will stay with us forever. We dream of a love that is unchanging, a love that will endure through every trial, every hardship. We imagine that once we experience this kind of love, it will be our constant companion, a source of security and comfort that we can rely on. But love, in its truest form, is not meant to be a crutch. It is not a possession to be kept or locked away. Love is meant to be experienced in each moment, to be nurtured and celebrated, to be allowed to grow and change as we do. The truth of impermanence means that love, like all things, must be allowed to evolve. It cannot be held onto forever, nor should it be. When we try to freeze love in time, when we demand that it remain the same, we are not honoring its true nature. Love, in its most authentic form, is not something to be clung to. It is something to be allowed to breathe, to grow, to shift with the seasons of our lives. It is in accepting this truth that we can begin to experience love more deeply, more fully, without fear of its passing. This does not mean that love will always be easy. In fact, the acceptance of impermanence can often be the most challenging aspect of love. When we love someone, we naturally want to hold on to that love, to keep it intact, to prevent it from changing or fading. We fear that if we let go, we will lose the connection we share with that person. But the reality is that love, in its deepest form, is not something that can be lost. It is not a finite resource that can run out. Rather, it is a force that flows and changes, adapting to the circumstances of our lives. When we accept that love is impermanent, we can begin to appreciate it for what it truly is, a gift. Each moment of love is a moment that will never come again. Each connection we share with another is unique, and it can never be replicated or replaced. When we stop trying to hold on to love as though it is something we can possess, we begin to experience it in its purest form, without attachment or fear. We begin to understand that love, like all things, must be experienced in its fullness, in its transience, and in its beauty. The Buddhist teachings on impermanence are not about creating distance from love, but about deepening our connection to it. When we let go of the expectation that love must remain unchanged, we free ourselves to love more freely, more fully. We stop measuring love by how long it lasts or by how much it gives us, and we begin to see it for what it truly is, a dynamic force that connects us to one another and to the present moment. Love is not something to hold on to, but something to experience, to nurture, and to celebrate. We learn to let go of the need for permanence in love. We stop clinging to the idea that love must always look a certain way or last for a certain amount of time. We begin to accept that love, like all things, is impermanent. And in this acceptance, we find a deeper sense of peace. We no longer fear the end of love, because we understand that it is not the end of love itself. It is simply the end of that particular moment of love. And in that release, we make space for new moments, new experiences, and new ways of loving. When we look back on our lives, we see that it is not the moments of love that we regret, but the moments when we tried to hold on to them too tightly, when we tried to freeze time and make it last forever. The memories of love are not meant to be clung to, but to be cherished and celebrated in the present. We cannot live in the past, and we cannot live in the future. We can only live in the now, in the moments that are unfolding before us. Love is a reflection of life itself. Just as life is constantly changing, so too is love. And just as we cannot control the flow of life, we cannot control the flow of love. But when we accept that love, like everything else, is impermanent, we can experience it more deeply, more fully, and more freely. We can let go of the fear of losing love and begin to celebrate the love that is right in front of us. This is the beauty of love as a mirror of impermanence. It teaches us to appreciate each moment, to embrace each experience, and to understand that love in its truest form is not something we possess, but something we allow to flow through us. It is not something to be controlled, but something to be experienced in its full, vibrant, ever-changing beauty. As you reflect on your own experiences with love, ask yourself, how much of your love has been shaped by the desire to hold on to it forever? How much of your connection with others has been defined by your fear of losing them? What would it be like to love without the expectation that it must last forever? What if you could love freely, without fear, without attachment, without the need to possess? In this freedom, you will find that love becomes richer, deeper, and more meaningful. You will begin to experience love not as something to be held onto, but as something to be shared. You will see that love is not finite, but infinite, endlessly flowing, endlessly renewing, endlessly expanding. So, as you rest tonight, perhaps you can reflect on love as a mirror of impermanence. Perhaps you can let go of the fear of losing it and simply allow yourself to experience it for what it is in this moment. Because love, in all its forms, is a gift, and in its impermanence, it is even more precious. In embracing the truth of impermanence, we also begin to understand that love, in its truest form, is not something to be controlled or confined. It is not about capturing a moment and forcing it to stay. Rather, it is about learning to dance with the rhythm of life, allowing each phase, each shift, each change to teach us more about ourselves and about others. The love we experience today may not be the same love we experience tomorrow, but that does not diminish its value. Each moment, each expression of love carries its own significance, its own beauty, even if it is fleeting. We are often taught that love should be constant, that it should remain the same throughout the course of a relationship, that it should always feel like it did at the beginning. But the truth is that love, much like everything else, grows, evolves, and sometimes fades. This does not make it any less meaningful. It makes it more profound. The knowledge that love is not permanent invites us to fully immerse ourselves in the present moment, to experience it as fully as we can before it changes, before it evolves into something else. When we stop demanding that love remain static, we begin to see it for what it truly is. A living, breathing force that exists to be experienced in the moment, not hoarded or contained. We start to appreciate the different faces of love, the passionate, the quiet, the nurturing, the tender, the difficult, and even the painful. All of these aspects are part of the grand tapestry of love, and each one offers its own lessons, its own moments of growth. Think about the love you've experienced in your life. How many times have you tried to hold onto a moment of love, desperately trying to keep it from slipping away? How often have you clung to a relationship, a feeling, a moment in time, afraid to let it change? What if you could learn to let go of the fear of losing that love and instead, simply allow it to be what it is when it is? What if you could embrace the impermanence of love as a gift, rather than a loss? This is where true freedom in love lies, not in trying to preserve or possess, but in allowing love to flow, to change, to evolve, and to dissipate when it must. When we can love without attachment, without the desperate need for permanence, we open ourselves to a love that is pure, authentic, and unburdened by fear. It is in this openness that we find true connection, not a connection that depends on holding on, but a connection that grows freely, naturally, and effortlessly. In this process of letting go, we also learn to appreciate the uniqueness of each experience. Love does not always look the same, nor does it need to. The moments when love feels distant or unreciprocated are just as important as the moments when love feels abundant and overflowing. Each of these moments has something to teach us. The moments of joy teach us to appreciate the sweetness of love, while the moments of challenge teach us to accept love's impermanence and to surrender to life's natural flow. As we grow in our understanding of love's impermanence, we begin to free ourselves from the expectations that have bound us. We stop demanding that love remain unchanged, and instead, we learn to flow with it, like a river that curves and changes with the landscape. We stop worrying about how long it will last, and instead, we start to savor each moment for what it is, not what we hope it will be. This shift is not easy. It requires us to be vulnerable, to let go of our need for control and to trust that love, in its ever-changing form, will continue to nourish us, even when it shifts. It requires us to accept the truth that not all love is meant to last forever, and that's okay. The impermanence of love is what makes it precious. If love were permanent, we might stop appreciating it. But in its changing nature, love becomes something we must cherish while it's here, knowing that it may not remain the same. It teaches us to live fully in the present, to love without reservation, and to give freely without the fear of losing. In letting go of the illusion of permanence, we find peace. We no longer look to love as a guarantee, but as a gift. We appreciate the time we have with those we love, knowing that the moments we share are fleeting and precious. We stop clinging to the past or projecting into the future, and instead we embrace the now. This is where the true beauty of love lies, not in its permanence, but in its ability to transform, to flow, to be experienced in every moment as something new and beautiful. The acceptance of love's impermanence is the key to unlocking a deeper, more meaningful connection with both ourselves and others. It allows us to experience love without fear, without attachment, and without expectation. It frees us from the need to control love, and instead, invites us to let love simply be. As you reflect on the love in your life, ask yourself, how often have you tried to hold on to love, afraid of losing it? How often have you tried to freeze love in time, only to feel it slipping away? What would it be like to love without the expectation that it must remain unchanged, to love freely without the fear of loss? In releasing the need to control love, you make space for it to flow naturally, and in that flow you will find peace. In the end, love is not something to be possessed or held onto. It is something to be experienced. It is a gift to be cherished in the moment, knowing that each moment of love is unique and irreplaceable. When we learn to accept the impermanence of love, we learn to love with freedom, with joy, and with deep appreciation for the beauty of the present moment. Part 6. The Nature of Love and the Zen Perspective. There is a simple yet profound story in Zen Buddhism that perfectly captures the essence of love: the story of the painted rice. In this story, a Zen master instructs his students to go out into the world and find the most beautiful object they can to bring back. After a day of searching, one student returns, proudly holding a finely painted bowl of rice, beautifully crafted with intricate details. The student places it before the master, who looks at it thoughtfully and says, "You have found beauty, but you have not found the truth of love." This story encapsulates a critical teaching in Zen. Love cannot be manufactured or artificially created. It is not something that can be captured by our expectations or desires. Love is not a product to be produced, nor is it something we can perfect by forcing it into a specific shape. It is a natural expression of the heart, something that arises spontaneously when we align ourselves with the deepest truths of existence. True love cannot be imitated. It must flow from a heart that understands its own nature. In Buddhism, love is often seen as a reflection of our understanding of life itself. It is not something that can be forced or fabricated. Love emerges when we stop trying to control it, when we let go of our need to shape it according to our desires. It comes into being naturally when we begin to understand the deeper nature of our own hearts, when we accept the impermanence of life and the interconnectedness of all beings. Love is not a construction, but a revelation, something that appears when we remove the barriers we have built between ourselves and the world. The Zen perspective teaches us that love is not born of expectation, but of awareness. When we stop approaching love as something we must attain or possess, we begin to experience it as it truly is: simple, natural, and unforced. The painted rice symbolizes the tendency to shape and perfect love according to our desires, turning it into something artificial. But Zen reminds us that real love cannot be constrained by human intentions. It is a force that flows freely, untethered by the limitations of our expectations. This realization brings us to an important lesson about love through meditation, particularly in the practice of mindfulness or zazen. Through the practice of sitting still and focusing our awareness, we are able to observe the thoughts, feelings, and desires that arise within us. In meditation, we learn to be present with whatever arises, without judgment or attachment. In this space of pure awareness, we come to understand the nature of our emotions, including love. Meditation teaches us that love is not a thing to possess. It is not something to hold onto, nor is it something to seek out. Instead, love is simply a part of the present moment. It is a natural result of our awareness and presence. When we meditate, we cultivate an inner stillness that allows love to emerge freely, without the constraints of our expectations. Just as the rice in the Zen story cannot be artificially created, true love cannot be forced. It arises naturally when we remove our mental constructs and allow ourselves to simply be present. Zen teaches that love is not an emotion to be controlled or possessed. It is not something that we need to chase or strive for. Love is a state of being. It is a state of openness, receptivity, and acceptance. When we meditate, we cultivate a deep connection with ourselves and the world around us. We allow ourselves to be fully present in each moment, without the need for validation or approval. In doing so, we create the space for love to flow naturally, without the interference of our desires or fears. The practice of meditation helps us let go of the conditions we place on love. We often approach love with expectations that it will fulfill our needs, that it will make us whole, that it will always remain the same. These conditions create barriers between us and true love. Meditation teaches us to release these conditions, to stop trying to control love, and to simply experience it as it is. When we stop expecting love to be something other than what it is, we allow it to be free, pure, and spontaneous. One of the core teachings of Zen is the practice of non-attachment, and this is equally important in our understanding of love. Non-attachment does not mean we do not care for others or that we close ourselves off to love. Rather, it means we learn to love without clinging, without trying to hold on to the people or experiences we cherish. When we attach ourselves to the idea that love must look a certain way, or that it must be constant, we restrict its flow. Love, like life itself, is in constant motion. When we embrace non-attachment, we allow love to move freely, without the fear of losing it. We accept love for what it is in each moment, without demanding that it remain the same. The Zen perspective also teaches us to embrace the simplicity of love. We often make love more complicated than it needs to be, thinking that it requires grand gestures or profound sacrifices. But Zen reminds us that love is inherently simple. It is the quiet moments of connection, the moments of understanding and presence. It is the ability to be with someone, to sit in silence, to share space without needing to fill it with words. Love does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be dramatic. It simply needs to be true. In meditation, we practice just being without striving or reaching for anything. This practice reflects the nature of true love. It is not about seeking, grasping, or controlling. It is about being fully present with the moment, allowing love to flow naturally, without interference. When we let go of the need to force love into a specific shape, we begin to experience it more deeply. We begin to see that love is not something that can be manufactured or controlled. It is something that exists in every moment if we are open to it. The beauty of love, as seen through the Zen perspective, is that it is not something we can grasp. It is not something we need to fight for or compete for. Love arises when we are open, when we are present, when we are not trying to hold on to it. It is an expression of our true nature, an expression of kindness, compassion, and awareness. When we meditate and cultivate mindfulness, we remove the barriers that prevent love from flowing freely. We stop trying to make love fit into our expectations, and instead, we allow it to be as it is, in its purest form. This is the power of meditation and Zen practice. It helps us understand the nature of love, not as something we need to possess, but as something that arises naturally when we are in harmony with ourselves and the world around us. It teaches us to love without attachment, to love without expectation, and to love without fear. When we embrace this practice, we open ourselves to a love that is not limited by time or conditions, but one that flows freely and abundantly. As you continue to reflect on the teachings of Zen and their relevance to love, it becomes clear that the essence of love lies not in what we do for others or how much we can hold on to, but in our ability to be fully present with them. In Zen, love is not a goal to be achieved, nor a reward to be earned. It is a state of being, one that flows naturally from a heart that is open, from a mind that is free from attachment and expectation. It is the simple act of being there in the moment, fully immersed in the experience of love as it arises. This understanding of love is transformative. It shifts the focus away from what we can get from love, whether it is attention, validation, or emotional fulfillment, and directs it towards what we can give, not through grand gestures, but through presence and genuine connection. Zen teaches that the deepest form of love is not the love we give to others to fulfill our own needs, but the love we give simply because it is our nature to do so. When we approach love from this perspective, we no longer feel the pressure to meet expectations or prove our worth. We stop chasing after love and instead allow it to come to us naturally. This is where meditation plays a crucial role. Through regular meditation, we cultivate the ability to quiet the mind, to remove distractions, and to create a space where love can emerge without interference. It is in this silence that we come to realize that love is not something we can force. It is something we must allow to unfold. Through Zen meditation, we come to see that love is not separate from who we are. It is not something external that we seek or obtain. Rather, love is an expression of our true nature. It is a natural, organic outflow of the heart that arises when we are aligned with the present moment. When we stop seeking love from others and instead turn inward to connect with our own heart, we discover that love was never something to be found outside of ourselves. It was always within us, waiting to be expressed. This realization brings with it a profound sense of peace. We no longer need to chase after love because we know it is already here within us. We stop clinging to relationships, attachments, or even ideals of love. Instead, we simply allow love to flow as it will, knowing that it will be there when we need it, and that it will change and evolve as life does. Love becomes less of a pursuit and more of a natural state of being. This shift in perspective allows us to experience love more fully, more deeply, and with a greater sense of freedom. In letting go of our attachments to how love should be, we also let go of the fear of losing it. Love, in its truest form, does not depend on external conditions. It is not something that can be taken away or lost, because it is not something that can be possessed. It is a state of being, and when we embrace this understanding, we free ourselves from the need to hold on. We learn to love freely without the fear of loss, because we understand that love, when it flows from the heart, is always present, even when it changes. Zen teaches that love is not about expectation. It is not about receiving anything in return for our actions. Love becomes true when we are able to give without expecting, to love without needing. It is in this freedom that we experience the fullness of love. We are not bound by the limitations of what we hope to receive, but instead, we love because it is our nature, because it is the most natural expression of our being. This is where true peace lies, in loving freely without attachment or expectation, and in embracing love for what it is, not for what we want it to be. As you reflect on your own experiences with love, ask yourself, how much of your love has been driven by expectation? How often have you loved with the hope of receiving something in return? What would it be like to let go of these expectations, to love without attachment, without needing anything in return? What if you could love simply because it is your nature, without fear, without judgment, and without conditions? This is the heart of Zen love. It is not something to possess, but something to experience. It is not something to hold on to, but something to let flow freely. When we let go of our need for control, when we stop trying to hold on to love, we allow it to grow naturally, in its own time and in its own way. In doing so, we experience love in its purest form, unencumbered by the demands of the ego and deeply connected to the present moment. In this state, love becomes a source of freedom. We no longer feel trapped by our desires or our need for affirmation. We love because we are whole, because we understand that love is not a transaction but a gift. It is not a commodity to be exchanged, but a blessing to be shared. When we practice Zen, when we practice being fully present, we open ourselves to the abundance of love that already exists within us and around us. As we continue on this journey of love, we realize that true love is not something to search for, it is something to cultivate. It is not something to be controlled, but something to be experienced in every moment with every breath. In this space of love, there is no fear, no need to hold on, only a deep and abiding trust in the flow of life. Love, like everything else, is impermanent, but it is also eternal in its expression, ever-changing, ever-growing, and ever-present. Part 7. The Freedom in Love, Letting Go and Letting Be. There's a profound paradox in the way we understand love. We often think of it as something we must possess, something we must cling to in order to feel secure. We imagine that love, like a possession, can be controlled, contained, or defined. But the truth is, real love is not something to be grasped. It is something to be released. Love, in its truest form, is not a chain that binds us. It is a freedom that sets us free. When we love without expecting anything in return, love becomes a force of liberation, not of limitation. It is in this freedom, this ability to love without attaching conditions, that we find the purest form of love. Love that is free from expectation has no strings, no rules, no demands. It exists for its own sake, flowing freely between hearts, unrestricted by the need for validation or reciprocation. This love is not bound by time, nor is it limited by circumstance. It simply is, in all its fullness, unburdened by the weight of control. In Buddhism, the concept of letting go is central to understanding both love and life. But letting go is not about abandoning, resigning, or giving up. It is not about withdrawing or retreating from our emotions or relationships. To let go is to release the illusion of control, to relinquish the need to dominate, possess, or control what we love. It is the realization that true love cannot be forced into being. It is not something we can command or manipulate. It arises naturally when we are open and willing to allow it to flow freely. Letting go is about releasing our need for security, for certainty, and for conditions, and instead allowing love to simply be. Buddhism teaches that attachment is at the root of much of our suffering. We become attached to people, to things, to expectations of how love should look, and we forget that nothing in this world is permanent. All things are in a constant state of flux. People change. Situations change. Feelings change. And when we cling to the belief that love must remain the same, we set ourselves up for disappointment and pain. Letting go means accepting that love, like everything else in life, is impermanent, and that the beauty of love lies in its fleeting, ever-changing nature. The art of letting go is not about detachment in the sense of indifference or coldness. It is not about becoming numb to our emotions or closing ourselves off from the world. On the contrary, letting go opens us up to a deeper, more expansive love, one that is not bound by fear or expectation. It is the love that we give without needing anything in return, the love that is freely offered and freely received. When we love with an open heart, without conditions or attachments, we allow ourselves to experience love in its purest form. It is through this practice of giving love freely that we start to experience the profound shift that occurs when we let go of attachment. When we let go of our need to possess, control, or own love, we free ourselves from the anxieties and fears that come with such attachments. We stop measuring love by how much we receive or how long it lasts, and instead, we experience love in its purest, most liberated form. In metta, love becomes a gift we offer without expectation, a gift that expands not just the lives of others but our own as well. This shift in perspective is not something that happens overnight. It requires patience, practice, and self-awareness. But with each step we take in embodying metta, we begin to experience the transformative power of love and compassion in our lives. The more we practice, the more natural it becomes to extend love to others, even when it is difficult. We begin to see challenges as opportunities to practice compassion, moments of conflict as opportunities for understanding, and moments of suffering as opportunities to offer kindness. In our day-to-day lives, metta can take many forms. It can be as simple as offering a kind word to someone in need, as small as holding space for someone's grief, or as profound as forgiving someone who has hurt us. Each act of loving kindness, no matter how small, contributes to the greater good, and in doing so, it transforms both the giver and the receiver. The practice of metta teaches us that love is not something that we can control or confine. It is something that flows freely when we allow it to, something that grows the more we give it away. One of the most profound ways that metta influences our lives is by shifting our perspective on suffering. In the Buddhist tradition, Suffering is seen as a universal part of the human experience. Everyone at some point in their lives faces challenges, pain, and hardship. But when we approach suffering with loving kindness, we begin to see it not as something to be avoided, but as an opportunity to practice compassion. In times of difficulty, we can choose to extend love to ourselves and others, knowing that love, in its truest form, can heal even the deepest wounds. Metta also invites us to practice radical acceptance. To love without condition means to accept others as they are, without the need to change them. This is not to say that we should tolerate harmful behavior or remain passive in the face of injustice. Rather, it means accepting others with their imperfections and acknowledging that we are all on our own journeys of growth and learning. When we approach others with this acceptance, we create an environment where genuine love can thrive, where people feel safe to be themselves, knowing that they are not judged or expected to be anything other than who they are. Ultimately, the practice of metta is about recognizing the inherent worth of every being, including ourselves. It is about seeing beyond the surface, beyond the masks we wear, the labels we carry, and the judgments we impose, and acknowledging the deep humanity that connects us all. When we practice loving kindness, we stop looking at others through the lens of division and instead see them through the lens of compassion. We stop focusing on what makes us different and instead focus on what makes us the same. Our shared experience of being human, our shared capacity for love, our shared need for understanding and acceptance. In practicing metta, we also cultivate a deeper connection with ourselves. We learn to love ourselves not in spite of our flaws, but because of them. We understand that our imperfections make us whole, and that to love ourselves fully is to accept every part of us, the light and the dark, the strengths and the weaknesses. When we can love ourselves in this way, we no longer seek validation from others. We no longer need to prove our worth. We simply exist in love both for ourselves and for the world around us. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, how often do you practice metta? How often do you offer love and kindness to yourself without expectation? How often do you extend love to others without judgment or condition? What would it be like to love without seeking anything in return? What would it be like to give love freely, to let it flow from your heart without the fear of loss or rejection? When you practice loving kindness, you begin to see the world in a new light. You begin to recognize that love is not something you must chase, but something you must allow. It is not something you can possess, but something you can share. It is the most natural expression of who you are, and when you embody it fully, you open yourself to a deeper, more fulfilling connection with the world and with others. The journey of metta is a journey of transformation. It is the journey of discovering the love that already exists within you, and of sharing that love with the world in ways that bring healing, connection, and peace. It is the journey of becoming a vessel for compassion, of recognizing that love is not something that must be earned, but something that is freely given. And when you walk this path, you will find that the world becomes a more loving, compassionate, and peaceful place, not because the world has changed, but because you have chosen to change how you show up in it. Part 9. Love beyond the self, connecting with others. Love has long been viewed as a force that transcends boundaries, a connection that is deeply rooted in our hearts, a force that binds us all. But over time, many of us have come to misunderstand love. We have come to believe that love is something to possess, something to hold, to keep, to claim as our own. We treat it like a commodity, something that can be owned, controlled, and protected. This misconception, this attachment to ownership, has led to much suffering in our relationships, and it distorts the true nature of love. At its core, love is not meant to be owned. It is not meant to be locked away in the confines of a relationship or held tightly within the walls of a single person. Love is a living, breathing force that is meant to be shared, to flow freely from one heart to another. It is not a possession, but a gift that should be given without expectation, without the need to possess, without the desire for control. When we recognize this truth, we begin to see that love is not something that can be owned or controlled. It is something that we offer to others, something that we nurture and allow to grow through connection. The more we hold on to love, the more we try to possess it, the more it slips away from us. We become afraid of losing it, afraid that if we let go even slightly, it will vanish. But love is not something that can disappear when it is freely given. Love only fades when we try to control it, when we place expectations upon it, or when we hold it too tightly. True love thrives in freedom. It flourishes when it is allowed to flow, to move, and to change, unburdened by the weight of possessiveness. Love becomes a burden when it is treated as something to be owned, but it becomes a force of light when it is shared and nurtured. This brings us to one of the most profound aspects of love. Love is not just for the self. It is not something that is meant to be confined to our own hearts or our own experiences. Love is meant to be shared with others, to connect with the world around us. When we love, we offer a piece of ourselves to the world, whether it's in the form of a kind word, an empathetic ear, a gesture of care. Love is meant to be a bridge, connecting us to one another, transcending the barriers that divide us. It is in the act of sharing love that we begin to experience its true power. When we love without expecting anything in return, when we give love without the need for reciprocity, something beautiful happens. Not only does our heart open wider, but the world around us begins to shift. Love becomes a force of healing, a force of connection, and a force of growth. It spreads, touching the lives of others in ways we cannot always see or understand. And as love flows outward, it brings us joy, not because we receive something in return, but because we experience the beauty of giving, the beauty of connecting, and the beauty of knowing that love has the power to change the world. This is the true power of love. It is not just something we experience for ourselves, but something we share with others to bring about a deeper, more meaningful connection. When we love unconditionally, when we release the need for anything in return, we create an environment of openness, acceptance, and peace. We stop measuring love by what we get out of it, and we start to appreciate it for what it is, an expression of our deepest humanity, a force that brings us closer to each other, not through what we possess, but through what we offer. The practice of unconditional love is not always easy. It requires us to let go of the expectations that we place on others, the standards we hold for how love should look, and the desire for our love to be returned in kind. But when we practice loving others without expectation, we create a relationship that is grounded in true connection. We allow others to be themselves without trying to change them or fit them into a mold. We embrace them for who they are, not for what they can give us in return. This is when relationships become strong, when they become grounded in something deeper than surface-level interactions. This is the kind of connection that lasts, not because we try to hold on to it, but because it is rooted in mutual respect, understanding, and acceptance. Unconditional love is a revolutionary concept because it asks us to release all of our preconceived notions about what love should be. It challenges us to move beyond our own needs and desires and to focus on the needs of others, not out of obligation, but out of genuine care and compassion. When we love unconditionally, we are not focused on what we will get from the relationship, but on what we can give to it. We stop asking, "What do I need from this person?" and start asking, "How can I serve this person?" In this shift, we discover a deeper connection not just with others, but with ourselves. For when we love without expectation, we release the need for validation, and we find peace in knowing that love is enough, that it is its own reward. This kind of love brings with it profound transformation. It moves us beyond the self-centered ego and into the realm of true connection. In giving love, we experience the beauty of becoming one with those we love. We see them not as separate from us, but as extensions of ourselves. The more we give, the more we receive, not in the form of tangible rewards, but in the form of joy, peace, and a deeper sense of fulfillment. And in the act of giving love freely, we begin to realize that we are part of something much greater than ourselves. When we love without expectation, When we let go of our desire to possess or control, we discover that love is not a finite resource. It does not run out, it only grows. The more we give, the more we have to give. This is the paradox of love. The more we offer, the more it expands. When we love beyond the self, we create a connection that is not only strong but also unbreakable. We discover that love is not bound by time, space, or circumstance. It is an eternal force that transcends all of our limitations. In this journey of love, we begin to understand that love is not something we keep for ourselves. It is something we share with the world, with others, and with all living beings. Love becomes a bridge that connects us to others in profound ways. And in this connection, we find the deepest joy and fulfillment. Not because we receive love in return, but because we have given it freely, without condition, and without expectation. As you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, how often have you held on to love, thinking that it was something you needed to possess? How often have you loved with the expectation of receiving something in return? What would it be like to love without expecting anything in return, to give love freely, without fear or hesitation? What would it be like to connect with others not through ownership or expectation, but through unconditional love? In the end, love is not something to possess. It is something to share. When we let go of the need to control it, love becomes a force that unites us all. It is through love that we find true connection, not only with others but with the very essence of who we are. Love beyond the self is the key to deep, meaningful relationships, to peace, and to a life that is full of joy and purpose. As we delve deeper into the practice of unconditional love, we begin to see how this simple yet profound act can transform not only our relationships with others, but also our relationship with ourselves. The practice of loving beyond the self is not just about the act of giving love. It is about truly seeing others, understanding their experiences, and connecting with them on a level that transcends superficial differences. It is about recognizing the inherent humanity in every person we encounter and choosing to approach them with empathy, understanding, and respect. This practice of unconditional love also shifts the way we view ourselves. Often, we are so focused on the external world and the relationships we have with others that we forget about the most important relationship of all, the relationship we have with ourselves. Unconditional love begins within. It is only when we learn to love ourselves without conditions, when we stop criticizing, judging, and rejecting ourselves, that we can truly love others in the same way. We learn to give ourselves the same compassion, kindness, and understanding that we offer to the people we love. And when we do this, we unlock a deeper, more authentic form of connection with the world. The essence of unconditional love is not about doing things for others in order to get something in return. It is about giving freely because we know, deep within ourselves, that love is the highest form of connection we can experience. Love is not something that can be measured, counted, or expected to be returned in equal measure. Love, in its truest form, is selfless. It is given freely, without expectation, because it is the natural outpouring of a heart that is full and at peace. It is not about keeping score. It is about nurturing the bond between ourselves and others through every word, every action, every moment. The beauty of unconditional love is that it is infinite. It does not run out and it does not diminish over time. In fact, the more we give, the more we receive. This is the paradox of love. The act of giving love without expectation enriches us more than we can imagine. When we approach life with an open heart, ready to give and receive love in equal measure, we begin to see the world differently. We stop viewing others through the lens of what we can get from them and start seeing them for who they truly are, complex, beautiful individuals deserving of our love and respect. In this practice of loving beyond the self, we also come to recognize that love is not about perfection. It is not about having a flawless relationship or never experiencing conflict. Love is about embracing imperfection, both our own and that of others. We realize that love does not require us to be perfect. It simply requires us to be real, to show up with an open heart, to give without expectation, and to accept others as they are, flaws and all. Through the practice of unconditional love, we also learn that love is not about holding on. The more we try to hold on to love, whether through clinging to people, possessions, or the way we think things should be, the more we limit ourselves. Love, in its truest form, is free. It is not bound by time, circumstances, or conditions. When we stop clinging to the idea of love as something we must possess, we allow it to flow freely, effortlessly, and abundantly. We begin to understand that love is not something to hold onto, but something to share, to offer, to give away without any expectation of return. The freedom in love comes when we realize that love is not about what we have, but about what we give. The act of giving love opens us up to the boundless possibilities that life has to offer. It brings us closer to others, creating connections that are deep, meaningful, and lasting. It enables us to experience joy, peace, and fulfillment not through what we receive, but through the simple act of giving. And in giving love freely, we discover that love multiplies, it grows, it expands, and it transforms our lives in ways we never thought possible. When we love without expectation, we free ourselves from the limitations that often come with attachment. We stop measuring love by how much we receive or how long it lasts, and we begin to experience it for what it truly is, an experience that transcends time, space, and circumstance. Love is not bound by conditions or definitions. It simply exists as a force of nature, a connection that we are all capable of experiencing, as long as we are willing to open our hearts and share it with others. One of the most powerful aspects of unconditional love is its ability to heal. Love has the power to mend broken hearts, to bridge divides, and to restore peace where there was once pain. When we approach others with unconditional love, we create a space for them to heal as well. Love allows us to let go of resentment, to forgive, and to release the pain of the past. It allows us to embrace the present moment and to build stronger, more meaningful connections with others. When we give love freely, without expectation or condition, we are giving the greatest gift we can offer, the gift of healing, connection, and peace. In this journey of loving beyond the self, we learn that love is not a finite resource. It is not something that can be depleted or exhausted. The more we give, the more we have to give. Love is not a commodity. It is a boundless energy that flows through us and connects us to the world. And the more we share this love, the more we experience its beauty and power. In loving without expectation, we open ourselves to a deeper, more profound connection with others and with ourselves. We allow love to flow freely, without the fear of loss or rejection, and in doing so, we experience the fullness of life. So, as you reflect on your own life, ask yourself, how often do you love with conditions, expecting something in return? How often do you love with the fear of loss or the need to possess? What would it be like to love without expectation, to give love freely and without fear? What would it feel like to experience love as a force that connects you to the world and to others, not because you need it, but because it is your nature to give it? The true beauty of love lies in its freedom. When we love without expectation, we unlock the power to create deep, meaningful connections that transcend the self. We stop holding on to love as something to possess and begin to experience it as something to share, to give, to offer to others freely. In this freedom, love becomes boundless. It grows, it expands, and it transforms our lives in ways we could never have imagined. Part 10. Embracing impermanence and finding peace in love. There is an undeniable truth that we often resist: impermanence. In a world that thrives on stability, we constantly seek ways to hold onto things, to preserve them in time, to freeze moments of happiness, connection, and love. We tend to think of love as something we must protect, something that once found should remain eternal and untouched by the passage of time. But love, in its truest sense, is not something to possess or control. Love is fluid. It is ever-changing, like a river that carves its way through the landscape of our lives, transforming both itself and the land it touches as it flows. To truly understand love, we must first come to terms with the concept of impermanence, the understanding that all things, including love, are transient. Love will not always remain as it is. It will change, evolve, and sometimes fade. But in embracing this truth, we open ourselves up to the possibility of experiencing love in its fullest form. The acceptance of impermanence in love is not about surrendering to loss. It is about finding peace in knowing that every moment of love is a precious gift, a fleeting moment that, once past, cannot be replicated. This acceptance of love's impermanence is not easy. It challenges the very nature of how we view relationships and emotions. We want love to last forever. We want it to remain constant in the face of life's storms. But when we hold on to the belief that love must be permanent, we set ourselves up for disappointment. We create expectations that love must remain the same, and when it changes, whether due to time, distance, or life circumstances, we are left with sorrow and regret. The truth is, love's impermanence is not a cause for grief, but a reason to cherish it more deeply. When we understand that love will not last forever, we learn to savor every moment, knowing that it is precious and unique. Each moment of love is a gift, whether it lasts for a second, a year, or a lifetime. The fleeting nature of love makes it all the more valuable. In the rush of our lives, we often overlook the beauty of these moments, thinking that we can always hold onto them, thinking that love will always be there when we need it. But true peace comes when we let go of the need to control love, to trap it in the past or the future, and instead experience it fully in the present. When we are present with love, when we allow it to flow freely without fear or attachment, we experience its true beauty. Love becomes something to be celebrated, not held onto. It becomes a part of us, flowing through us, touching our hearts and the hearts of others without expectation. Each moment of love, whether it is a brief connection with a stranger, a moment of quiet affection with a loved one, or a deep bond that spans years, is a precious gift. When we accept love's impermanence, we no longer take it for granted. We appreciate it for what it is in each moment, and we let it go when it is time. We stop trying to preserve love, and instead, we allow it to grow, to transform, and to flow freely. This acceptance of love's impermanence brings peace, for it frees us from the fear of losing it. We understand that love is not something to possess, but something to experience, to give, and to share. The realization that love is not something we can control, that it is not something we can hold on to forever, is a profound awakening. This awakening brings with it a deeper sense of peace, for we stop living in fear of losing love. Instead of grasping and clinging to it, we learn to experience love in its most authentic form, unconditional, free, and unburdened by expectation. True love, in its most pure and simple form, is not something that we need to hold on to. It is something that flows naturally, something that exists without our interference. When we stop trying to control love, we find that it deepens, expands, and transforms us in ways we never expected. The practice of embracing impermanence in love also teaches us the value of being present. We realize that love is not about holding onto the past, but about living fully in the present moment. When we are present with love, we experience its full depth and beauty. We no longer live in fear of its loss, but in gratitude for its existence. Each moment of love, no matter how brief, becomes a source of joy and peace. When we accept that love is impermanent, we are free to experience it fully without the burden of expectation. We are free to love without needing to possess, without needing it to stay the same, and without fearing that it will one day fade. The beauty of impermanence in love is that it forces us to value what we have in the present. When we are not attached to the idea that love must remain constant, we are free to experience love in all its forms. We learn that love is not confined to one moment or one person. It is a force that connects us to all beings, a force that moves through us, shapes us, and ultimately transforms us. And when we embrace this fluidity, this ebb and flow of love, we find a deeper, more profound connection with others and with ourselves. This brings us to the ultimate truth about love. It begins from within. The realization that love is not something we seek externally, but something that originates within our own hearts, is a transformative understanding. We no longer search for love outside of ourselves, nor do we rely on others to give us what we feel we need. We understand that love is not something that can be found in the world. It is something that must first be cultivated within. When we learn to love ourselves unconditionally, without judgment or expectation, we are able to share that love with others in its most authentic form. True love, in this sense, is not about seeking or finding. It is about awakening to the love that is already present within us. When we embrace this truth, we stop searching for love in the wrong places. We stop looking for validation from others, and instead, we begin to see that love is not something we need to earn or achieve. It is something that exists within us, waiting to be expressed. This is the awakening that comes when we embrace impermanence in love. We stop looking for love outside of ourselves and start recognizing that it is already here within our hearts, waiting to be shared. This shift in perspective is the key to finding peace in love. We stop chasing after love and instead we allow it to come to us. We let go of the need for love to stay the same, and instead we embrace its ever-changing, fluid nature. When we do this, we find that love becomes a source of peace, not a source of stress. We no longer fear its loss because we understand that love is not a possession to be held, but a gift to be given freely. In embracing the impermanence of love, we also come to understand that life itself is impermanent. Every relationship, every connection, every moment of affection is fleeting in its own way. But in the recognition of this impermanence, we begin to find freedom. This freedom arises from the knowledge that nothing in life is permanent, not love, not pain, not joy, not sorrow, and that the natural course of change is what gives life its richness, its texture, and its depth. When we stop trying to hold on to love as if it were a permanent fixture in our lives, we learn to appreciate its presence in a deeper way. We no longer take love for granted. Instead, we savor each moment of connection, each shared experience, and each moment of kindness. We come to realize that love is not something that must endure forever to be meaningful. Its value is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how deeply it is felt in the moment. This understanding shifts our perspective on relationships and love itself. We begin to see that love, in its purest form, is about experiencing connection with another person or with ourselves without the need to possess it or hold on to it. We love not because we need to keep the other person with us forever, but because love is a natural expression of our being, a force that flows through us and connects us to the world. When we love with this understanding, we find peace. We stop trying to control how love should unfold, and we stop holding on to past memories or fearing the future. Instead, we live in the present, fully experiencing love as it is in each moment. We learn to let go of the need to possess love, and in doing so, we open ourselves to the fullness of love in its ever-changing, ever-evolving form. As we continue to explore the impermanence of love, we begin to see it not as a source of sorrow, but as a reminder of life's beauty. Love, like all things, is impermanent, but that is what makes it so precious. The fleeting nature of love allows us to experience it more fully, to cherish it in ways we might never have imagined if we were trying to hold on to it. The transience of love brings depth and intensity to our connections. It encourages us to appreciate the people in our lives, not because we are promised forever, but because we have now. We have this moment, and that is enough. The freedom that comes from embracing impermanence is profound. It frees us from the burden of attachment, the anxiety that arises when we try to keep things the same. We can let go of the fear of losing love, knowing that it is not something we possess but something we experience. It allows us to love without fear, to give without expecting, and to connect without conditions. This acceptance of impermanence invites us to let love be what it is, without the need to shape it, control it, or define it. It teaches us that love is not static. unchanging force but a dynamic, living energy that moves through us and the world, constantly transforming, constantly evolving. It is in this flow of love, in its ebbs and its surges, that we find peace, not because we have secured it, but because we have allowed it to flow freely. We have surrendered to love as it is, in all its complexity, its beauty, and its impermanence. By embracing impermanence, we also discover that true love begins within. The search for love outside ourselves often leaves us feeling empty, as though we are seeking something that is always just out of reach. But when we turn inward, when we recognize that love already exists within us, we begin to experience a deeper, more enduring connection. This love does not depend on others for validation or approval. It is self-sustaining, a wellspring that nourishes not only ourselves but also the people around us. True love is not about finding someone to complete us. It is about discovering that we are already whole, that love is already within us, and that we have the capacity to share this love freely with others. It is in this understanding that we find peace. When we stop searching for love outside of ourselves and begin to recognize the love within, we experience a profound shift. We no longer seek love to fulfill a need, but to share a gift. We no longer cling to love out of fear, but offer it freely, knowing that its impermanence is what makes it so precious. The act of letting go of our need to possess love is not a surrender of love, but a deepening of it. By letting go, we allow love to become more expansive, more abundant, and more authentic. We free ourselves from the expectations that have long bound us and open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of love in its truest, most natural form. When we let go, we discover that love does not fade, nor does it disappear. It evolves, it transforms, and it grows, filling every space in our lives with its light. So, as you reflect on your own journey with love, ask yourself, how often have you held on to love, trying to make it last forever? How often have you feared losing love, believing that its impermanence was something to be avoided? What if you could embrace love just as it is in each moment, without expectation or attachment? What if you could love freely, knowing that love, in its purest form, is a gift that will never run out because it is not something you can possess, but something you can share? Embrace the impermanence of love. Let it flow freely, without the need to control or possess it. Surrender to love, and in doing so, discover the peace that comes from knowing that love is not about securing it, but about experiencing it fully in each moment. Love is the greatest gift we can give, and it is in letting go of our need for it to remain the same that we discover its true power. The journey we've explored together has been one of deep reflection, self-discovery, and profound understanding of love in its truest, most unconditional form. Love is often romanticized, idealized, and presented as something to be found and held tightly. But this journey through the teachings of Buddhism and Zen has shown us that love is much more than an attachment to another person or a fleeting emotion. True love is about understanding impermanence, letting go of control, and embracing the natural flow of love that begins from within. Throughout this exploration, we have learned that love is not a possession to be claimed or a currency to be exchanged. We began with the idea that love is something we often chase, expecting it to fulfill a void, to complete us. Yet, the truth we discovered is that love is already within us. It is not something that needs to be grasped, but something that can flow freely, just like the river that carves its path through the landscape of our lives. Love exists as a force that connects us all, transcending the boundaries of time, space, and expectation. We delved into the concept of anicca, the Buddhist teaching on impermanence. Everything, including love, changes. It flows, it grows, it evolves, and sometimes it fades. The realization that love is impermanent does not lead to despair. Rather, it invites us to appreciate love more deeply, to savor each moment without the fear of losing it. Love, when recognized as fleeting, becomes more precious, more profound, and more meaningful. Each moment of love is a gift that we can cherish without the burden of expectation or possession. From this acceptance of impermanence, we learn to shift our perspective. Love is not something to be held onto tightly, not something we can control. Instead, love is meant to be experienced fully in the present. By letting go of the need for love to remain the same, we open ourselves to the natural ebb and flow of love without fear of loss. This shift allows love to be free from expectations, free from the need for reciprocity, and free from the limitations we place on it. In this freedom, love becomes something abundant and boundless, flowing through us and connecting us to others. Through meditation and mindfulness, we explored how metta, loving kindness, begins with self-love and extends outward. Love for ourselves is the foundation for loving others. When we love ourselves unconditionally, we free ourselves from the judgment and expectations that often cloud our perceptions of others. We learn that to love others is to love ourselves first, to give from a place of wholeness, and to release the need for validation or approval. True love is not about what we get, but about what we give. The practice of metta taught us that love is not just about grand gestures. It's about the small, everyday acts of kindness, compassion, and understanding. It's about offering love freely, without expecting anything in return. In embracing this love, we realize that we do not love to possess or to hold on to, but to connect, to share, and to nurture the bonds that unite us all. The more we give love without expectation, the more we experience the joy and peace that it brings. One of the key takeaways from this journey is the realization that love is not a transaction. It is not something that can be bargained for or earned through deeds or sacrifices. Love is a natural expression of who we are. When we love freely, we love not because we want something in return, but because love is our inherent nature. It is not about seeking love from others to complete us, but about recognizing that love is already within us and sharing it with the world. The more we practice this unconditional love, the more it expands and transforms us, creating deeper connections with others and with ourselves. We also explored the idea of freedom in love, the freedom that comes when we let go of the need to possess or control. The more we try to hold on to love, the more it slips away. But when we let go, we allow love to grow, to evolve, and to flow freely. This freedom comes from embracing the truth of impermanence and accepting that love is not meant to be fixed in time. It is meant to be experienced in each moment, cherished for what it is, and allowed to transform as life changes. Ultimately, the journey through these teachings has shown us that love is not something we can control or possess. It is a gift that flows freely, unburdened by expectation or condition. Love is not about ownership. It is about connection. It is not about seeking validation from others. It is about giving freely from the heart. Love becomes a force that unites us all when we stop trying to control it and simply let it be. As we reflect on the lessons of love and impermanence, it's important to ask ourselves how we can apply these teachings to our own lives. How often do we approach love with conditions, expecting something in return? How often do we cling to love, afraid to let go or to let it change? And what would it be like to love without expectation, to give love freely, without fear of loss or rejection? These questions serve as a reminder that love is not something we should chase or hold on to. It is something to be experienced, shared, and nurtured in every moment. The more we practice unconditional love, the more we create a world filled with kindness, compassion, and peace. Lessons from the story. Embrace impermanence. Understanding that love, like everything else, is impermanent allows us to cherish each moment. The fleeting nature of love doesn't make it any less valuable, it makes it more precious. Love is a gift to be savored in each moment, without the need to possess or control it. Love as a practice. True love is not just an emotion but a practice. It is something we cultivate through mindfulness, compassion, and kindness. When we practice loving kindness, metta, we open ourselves to deeper, more authentic connections with others and ourselves. Let go of expectations. The more we try to control or possess love, the more it eludes us. Let go of the need to possess love or hold onto it indefinitely. Instead, embrace the freedom that comes with loving without expectation or condition. Love is a force that grows when it is allowed to flow freely. Self-love is the foundation. Loving ourselves unconditionally is the foundation of loving others. We must first learn to accept and love ourselves before we can truly offer love to others. When we love ourselves, we become capable of offering love freely and without attachment. Love transcends transaction. Love is not a commodity to be traded or earned. It is not about getting something in return. True love is unconditional, freely given and shared. It is about connection, not possession. Applying these lessons in our lives. To apply these teachings, start by cultivating metta, loving kindness first for yourself. Practice self-compassion and acceptance, recognizing that you are worthy of love just as you are. Once you have cultivated this love for yourself, extend it to others. Begin by performing small acts of kindness without expectation. Practice unconditional love in your relationships, accepting others for who they are without judgment or condition. Understand that love is not about seeking something from others. It is about giving freely without the need for reciprocation. The more you practice this, the more you will experience the beauty of love in its purest form. Let go of the need to control or possess love. Allow it to flow freely without expectation, and watch as it transforms both you and the world around you. Now, I would love to hear from you. How do you see love in your own life? Do you find yourself holding onto love, afraid of losing it? Or are you able to love freely without expectation? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Let's learn from each other and continue this journey of love and growth together. And if you found this video meaningful, if it touched your heart and made you reflect on love in a deeper way, don't forget to subscribe to Buddhism in every moment. Your support helps us continue creating content that inspires and transforms, guiding us all toward a life of love, peace, and mindfulness. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the teachings of Buddhism and how they can help us live more fulfilling, connected lives.